It was a quiet morning in downtown Houston. The sun rose steadily above the skyline, casting golden reflections off the glass buildings as the city stirred to life. Sidewalks buzzed with people headed to work. Coffee shops pulled up their shutters, and the air carried that unmistakable weekday rhythm. But inside the 4th Precinct on Travis Street, a decision was about to unfold, one that would expose long-ignored truths, shake the city's trust, and change the trajectory of 2 police officers' lives forever. Officer Mitchell Crane and Officer Ryan Dorsey were already on patrol by 7 a.m., cruising through Midtown like they owned every streetlight and shadow. Their names echoed through the department not because of heroism, but because of the complaints that seemed to follow them like storm clouds. Excessive force, verbal abuse, racial profiling. Each complaint filed, each one buried. Their records remained pristine, protected by union reps and higher-ups who believed more in loyalty than accountability. They operated with impunity, eyes scanning for weakness, for the voiceless, for the ones who would never fight back. Around 7:30 a.m., their patrol car pulled onto a quieter street near Bagby. There, leaning casually against a black government-issued SUV, stood a woman in civilian clothing. She was calm, composed, and held a quiet confidence that didn't quite register with the officers. To them, she was just another woman loitering where she didn't belong. Maybe waiting for someone, maybe casing the area. Suspicion was second nature to them, and nuance had never been their strong suit. They didn't notice the Department of Defense placard on the dashboard. They didn't ask her name. They didn't see the discreet badge half-tucked under the windshield wiper. They didn't care. One of them opened the door, stepped out, and barked a command. She turned, startled but not afraid. Her reply was polite. She explained she was waiting for her husband who had stepped inside a nearby bakery. She said it calmly, almost too calmly for their taste. Officer Crane stepped closer. He didn't like her tone. Officer Dorsey flanked the other side, puffed up with tension. What happened next wasn't a misunderstanding. It was abuse. Without warning, Officer Crane slapped the woman across the face. A crack echoed through the quiet street, loud as a firecracker. She stumbled, stunned. Before she could speak, Dorsey shoved her backward and shouted at her to move along or face arrest. Their voices rose. She didn't run. She didn't argue. She just stared at them, her hand gently pressed against the reddening side of her face. People nearby turned. Some froze in shock. A few raised their phones and began recording, but no one intervened. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. And then she spoke. Softly, deliberately. You just made the worst mistake of your lives. She walked away. No curses. No threats. Just that quiet sentence. A promise. A reckoning. The officers watched her go and laughed, mocking, dismissive. But in less than 4 hours, the very foundation beneath them would begin to crack. That same afternoon, the front door to the 4th Precinct creaked open again. This time, silence blanketed the room before anyone even looked up. A woman entered in full uniform. Crisp, dark green dress jacket. Regulation boots polished to a mirror shine. Military police insignia shining on each shoulder. Her presence turned heads. Her posture didn't demand respect, it commanded it. Major Alana Reddick of the United States Military Police Corps walked in with quiet resolve. Behind her stood 2 men in plain suits, internal affairs, and not from the city, from a state. Their badges gleamed with jurisdiction and gravity. Major Reddick headed straight for the captain's office without a word. The captain stood when she entered, confusion flashing across his face. He didn't know her yet, but he would. She removed her cover, set it calmly on the desk, and began. She recounted every detail of that morning. The slap, the shove, the tone, the disregard for identification, the verbal threats. She described the lack of probable cause, the blind arrogance, and the immediate presumption of criminality. When the 2 officers were summoned and walked into the office, their jaws dropped. They recognized her instantly. Gone was the woman they thought they could intimidate. In her place stood a decorated military officer with 17 years of service, 4 tours, and commendation from both domestic and international deployments. She had trained soldiers, advised generals, and stood before world leaders. And now she stood before them not to fight but to demand accountability. They tried to deny it, of course. Crane insisted she had been disorderly. Dorsey claimed she had been acting erratic. But the footage told a different story. Videos from 3 bystanders had already been submitted to Internal Affairs. Every detail caught in high definition. Every word crystal clear. Their denials crumbled in minutes. Major Reddick didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult. She didn't demand blood. Instead, she calmly said, "You will answer for what you've done, and this time, your badges won't protect you." The story exploded within hours. Footage of the incident blanketed every news station. Houston officer's assault decorated military police major became the headline across digital and print media alike. Twitter boiled. Facebook erupted. Protests flared. It wasn't just about Major Reddick anymore. She became the face of every quiet injustice someone had endured under the shield of a badge. The mayor issued a statement. The police chief scrambled to distance the department from the incident. But it was too late. This wasn't something that could be polished or spun. It was raw. It was real. It was a mirror held up to the broken face of unchecked power. Major Reddick refused interviews. She stayed out of the spotlight. When reporters gathered outside her home, she issued a single statement. The courtroom is where this belongs. Justice is not a performance. Her silence, her restraint, made her a symbol. A warrior of integrity in a time of noise. Officers Crane and Dorsey were suspended within 48 hours. But that was only the beginning. A tidal wave followed. Over 50 prior complaints were reopened. Cases dismissed without investigation were pulled from dusty drawers. Internal Affairs launched a broader probe. Anonymous letters surfaced. Officers across the department began speaking up, no longer afraid. The chief of police stepped down amid public outcry. City council demanded oversight reform. 6 months later, the trial began. The courthouse buzzed like a hive. Reporters, activists, and everyday citizens packed into every available bench. The prosecution played the video on the courtroom's large screen. The slap echoed again. The push. The threats. The shame. Major Reddick took the stand with poise. She described everything: the blow to her face, the embarrassment, the pain. But she also spoke about choice, about not reacting with violence, about discipline, about the chain of command, about the cost of silence. The jury deliberated for less than a day. Guilty. Both officers were convicted on multiple counts: assault, abuse of authority, and misconduct while in uniform. Their sentences included prison time, dishonorable dismissal from the force, and a lifetime ban for public service. But the punishment didn't stop at prison bars. Their names became synonymous with disgrace. Every job interview, every online search, every whispered conversation at a grocery store carried the stain. Meanwhile, Major Reddick was awarded the Medal of Civil Valor from the city. She accepted it quietly, dedicating it not to herself, but to every citizen who had ever been silenced or ignored. Her story became part of police academy curriculum nationwide. Officers in training watched the footage, read transcripts, and learned a new phrase: Reddick Protocol, a lesson in restraint, dignity, and the consequences of arrogance. She returned to her post stronger. Not bitter, not angry, but resolute. Her rank rose. So did her influence. She spoke at conferences not as a victim, but as a leader. She was invited to testify before Congress on the use of force, civilian interaction, and the need for federal accountability standards. She never let the moment define her. Instead, she defined it. This wasn't just a story about 2 bad officers. This was about an institution that allowed them to exist unchecked. It was about a culture where uniforms became armor for bullies. And it was about how one person's quiet strength could shake an entire structure. Major Reddick's story is now etched in Houston's history, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a turning point. And in a time when shouting often drowns out meaning, she reminded the world of the power of silence, of posture, of principle, of justice.